Okay, and now we're going to bring in Adriana. And yeah, Adriana, if you like to take the platform.
Okay, hi everyone. I've just really loved what people have been saying, and it's really great to have this combination of people and coming from different views and having different contributions. And like that, I come from a completely different place, and have some completely different things to say. I think that I started off in my social care journey working kind of on helplines, and because for me it was really important to learn how to listen, which I think that I just hadn't done. And I think that this from the society, I think that nobody really learns, or at least it's very limited, learning how to listen from childhood, because listening is seen as a passive or submissive role, and is in that way, I think, slightly disparaged. And that's why I think sometimes people really want to give advice. They want to do all kinds of things, and also why it's really hard for people to speak, because they feel as if they're putting somebody else in a submissive role, or they're taking over, or they're taking a dominant role, and this is a very difficult beginning for what can be expression and hearing each other, because if we don't know how to speak, or we feel selfish. I love what Kate was saying about this idea. It feels selfish to want to be heard. Then I think that this is just how do we begin? And for me, I just thought, well, there's no way I can, even continue with my own life if I can't listen to people. So I really took that step first. First of all, I worked on a text and email helpline, which is women and girls affected by self-harm, and then on a telephone helpline, which was Somerset and Avon rape and sexual assault and abuse support. And the other thing then I realized is that that people feel a lot of shame, and they feel a lot of a kind of guilt. They self-blame. And this also created an interruption in people's ability to be able to express themselves. And so in a sense, I was kind of learning how to be with people, but also I was learning the difficult things that people have to overcome in order to be able to go into any kind of therapeutic space and actually begin some sort of process with working with themselves, because it's not like anyone can just walk in and say their part, because we're just not used to it. And especially some communities, there's a lot of repression around speaking up. Something about that proverb, get a wound on your back. I think that what it speaks about is how much children are, on the whole, feel the need to shut up in order to create self-preservation. And so there's so many forces pushing our expression back into us, overcoming these things as an adult, because obviously as a child, you're not necessarily... Is it all right with the volume? Yeah. As a child, you're not necessarily in the position where you can express yourself. You're really not. So and so my journey was into kind of a therapeutic talking therapies, took a completely different route. One of the things I found was something called focusing. because and focusing is about creating an invitation to a person to be with the parts of them that have been pushed down, parts of themselves. I think that what happens, and it's kind of often, it's quite well known, that what can happen is that through not expressing things, our feelings can get pushed down into the body, and then that's why people have somatic responses, why people get ill. They might start off with a pain in the neck, pain in the shoulders, migraine. They might feel choked. People talk about, butterflies and a kind of, the weight on them. And so in all kinds of ways, people's experiences get pushed into the body. So one of the things about focusing is about creating an invitation and for people to be with their physical feelings and talk about what comes to them, their reflections, their ideas, and draw upon inner wisdom. But one of the things about focusing, which goes back to Liz's question about how can people access kind of free or less costly forms of help. And the thing about focusing is that although I became a focusing practitioner, the guy Eugene Gendlin, who kind of created this form, really created this form because what you can do and what the focusing community does is often to work in partnerships. And what happens there is not only do you learn to that you can have confidentiality, you can have trust, you can be with another human being and just speak about what arises in you, but also in this way you learn to listen. And I think that this idea of mutuality also creates a different power balance. And I think that that's one of the other things that can be very difficult in the society, where we're constantly dealing with very dynamic differences in people's power. And people feel powerless. People feel as if they are the recipient always of different, perhaps negative things. And also they feel as if they've got no action, that they can't speak up. And so that's one of the reasons why I went into focusing, firstly as in partnerships, and then as I became more convinced of its power actually to create listening and expression, and in that way to help people form couples or partnerships where they can begin to feel safe. And loads of people just don't feel safe. And loads of people don't know how to create safety within their relationships. They don't know how to form contracts, if you like, informally, where they can work towards a kind of a mutual responsibility. So I think that there are different ways and forms that people can approach talking therapies, and there are ways that you can access, if you like, different kinds of therapy really, but sometimes this is highly professionalized and sometimes it's less so, and it depends where you go and what you do. One of the things that I needed to do to bring this kind of more focusing training into my therapeutic practice was to move towards IFS, which is Internal Family Systems, which was created by a guy called Richard Schwartz. And that's a progression from focusing, although it's very much the same ideas, which is that there's different parts of us which are carrying the burdens of our experiences. And that one of the things that it's really good for is anxiety, because I think that people don't realize that when people experience anxiety, and others may not necessarily agree with my version, I want to say that because this, everyone has their own take, all practitioners have their own take, and all modalities will have their own take. But with anxiety, I think people can experience the different parts of them having competing voices, and they don't realize they feel as if they're just being bombarded, or they feel overwhelmed, and they don't realize that actually that they can listen to themselves, because then listening not only becomes about listening to others, but it also is about listening to the self, and that these parts of them that are competing for attention, that the world or the society wants us to think that those parts of us are a nuisance. And so we can often have no patience for ourselves and treat ourselves in the same way that we are treated. And actually, that's not the only way. That actually what we can do is we can think, oh, well, I can respect the parts of myself that need to be listened to, and take time to realize that these are my unmet needs. I think if people, I think actually it's been quite consistent among almost everyone that's spoken, and that is the idea of self-empathy and self-care and self-respect. And people think self-respect is, where you wash your face and brush your hair, but actually self-respect can go into much deeper levels, and that is where you think, well, this is my need, this is how I feel, this is where I feel comfortable. Someone said that about going to the shop, and to actually take those things on and say, okay, well, if this is how I feel, that these feelings are as much a part of me as my conscious voice, my conscious needs, and to attend to the different parts of ourselves which might be competing for attention. And so the reason that I really liked IFS, which is again a more professional form of therapy and is generally paid, but I really like this movement between the two, of how to work. I did work when I was doing my practitioner training for focusing with groups of Black people, where I was giving them free sessions, because there's such a need in the Black community for us to access different forms of expression towards self-care and towards expressing the parts of us that need care, need attention. And one of the things that's so brilliant about talking therapies is that just speaking out loud is a great way to diminish our fear, the fear of shame, and fears of unknown parts of ourselves. There you go. I don't know when I started. How am I doing on time?
You're doing fantastic. Do you want us to ask for any questions?
Yeah, no, I probably could say a little bit more, but it would only be about the particulars.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I'm happy to take questions.
A little bit of background noise as well. I'm not sure if it's on your end. I think we've muted everyone else, but it's been perfect all the way through. Don't worry about it.
Okay,
it's just for the question section. So, I mean, just for my benefit, I'm presuming some others as well. Can you explain a bit more about what focusing actually I know you've described it, but can you go into a bit more detail about what happens in a focusing session?
Okay, that's a really great question. So what I'll describe to you is a practitioner session, although partnership sessions are very similar. So what happens is that you begin with a kind of if you like, a grounding exercise, and it's to bring down the levels of the different voices or something that's going on, or the busyness from the outside world. But it's not about relaxing. People often think that what we need to do is relax, but actually what that is saying to ourselves is, how I am is not good enough, how I am is not right, and I need to change that to become presentable. But actually, so focusing doesn't start with the idea of relaxing. It's about coming as you are and letting those parts of yourself, giving them the credibility to be there in the space, and then to create an internal invitation to that person, so that you invite them to bring their awareness to their physical feelings, to whatever is going on for them at the time. And sometimes very dominant things are going on for them, and sometimes less so. And often there will be different parts of them, and one part of them will have the question, and another part of them will have the answer. So the practitioner or the partner doesn't provide any answers at all. They provide merely a listening space where you, as a practitioner, you obviously learn to draw people towards the parts of them that need to be heard the most. And then to stay with that, and so to continually, if you like, create invitations to not be distracted, but to be with these different parts of them that are wanting attention, and to stay in presence with those things. And it's quite amazing, actually, because people suddenly in that space begin to realize some of their needs, because I think people don't even give themselves enough space and time to even understand that this part of them that's crying out is expressing a need.
Yeah, that's I like that, because like you said, we live in such chaotic lives. It's hard to focus on the stuff that's really important, and being able to be directed towards seeing what we want as to be important is it's a valuable time. I can see Liz has her hand up, but Liz, if you want to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Adriana.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't look at the names because I'm just so interested in what you're all saying.
Okay.
This probably goes back to my question about money as well, and also goes back to the first speaker talking about us not going and expressing our needs. And when we talked about therapy or mental health, or both those things, A, addressing our mental health, our mental needs, and B, getting help, getting therapy, it always in Britain, whether it's black or white, seemed like an American thing to do, and seemed like a very selfish or self-focused thing to do, which is nothing wrong with that at all. And it's something that we talk about going to the gym, talk about eating well. Of course we should be thinking about our mental health and our well-being, but we've been working on a survival plantation diet on everything to do with health and well-being for so many hundreds of years that it seems like an indulgence to actually focus on our well-being. But we have to be able to continue. And this thing, the word resilience is one thing I've always hated. It's just keeping going. But you talked about three possibly different types of therapy. And I've only just got my head around cognitive behavioural therapy. And I found that when I was at my worst, I phoned there was a sort of like local directory thing where I couldn't get to my GP, and they didn't say that this person was going to be psychodynamic and this one was going to be cognitive behavioural, whatever. It was just like, this person lives up the road from you and they've got evening appointments. But I think it's like shopping for a pair of shoes. You've got to get the shoe that fits you as well. And I don't know, so my question is, when it's like we're in an emergency situation, what type of therapy do you think we should be going for? And when we're trying to get over or cope with the toxicities of the racism that we're all walking in, and it's bringing us all down, what are the priorities in terms of the behavioural therapies that we should be going, the therapies that we should be going for? But I do think that's something that each of us needs to think about individually, like a pair of shoes.
Okay, so thank you, Liz. I mean, actually, I think that's probably a question that each of us could answer differently, and probably because Cash works in the NHS, I think that he is really very got a lot of information and knowledge and for this question. But because I've worked on helplines, I really know that if you're in crisis, and I know that this isn't a professional person, but the thing is that you can pick up your telephone and you can call a helpline, and that person on the other end of the line most often is there because they've been trained to listen, and they care. They really do. There's a real because I've been behind the scenes, they really do. So if you've got a specific thing that you need to address, then try and find a specific helpline that can address that particular need. And there really are a lot around of different ones. But if you can't, you can get a list of them. I think I don't know if you can spend a half an hour or more on the Samaritans, but the funny thing is that actually you can have a few numbers and you can call different people around, and don't be alone in crisis. Use those services, and they are free. And the other thing about using those services is that we really need to learn to speak. We really need to, and through speaking and through someone listening to us, we are validated by that experience, because that person is there, and they are there, and they are spending their time, and they're listening to you because you are worth it. And that's what we really need to get into our heads. That people are interested in us, and that our feelings are worth it, and that we can speak, we can take up that time, and as we learn to speak, we can learn to trust that people want to listen to us. We listen to our own voices, we listen to it being reflected back, the words that we use, and we can slowly begin even in that small way to understand what's happening for us, and also some of the things that we are, twixt between. So I would definitely say, pick up a helpline number, speak. Learn to speak, learn to express, know that you are worth it. That is not selfishness, not on any level.
Thanks for that. Okay, I just want to remind everybody now, the floor is open to all panelists. So we've got Kate, we've got Cash, and we've got Adriana. So they are all available now. Any questions or any, guidance that you may need in terms of where to go. Also, Brother Nat has put a link in the chat as well in regards to getting some free support. So it's Talk Support UK, and he's advised as well that the resources are for our community and not from the establishment. And obviously that's, you know, a big part for us, because it's a case of, you know, obviously getting to speak to people who look like us, who appreciate our culture and our upbringing and what we do have to endure through our life and society. So thank you again, Brother Nat, for that. Much appreciated. Yeah, and we will speak to you as well after this session this evening. So yeah, if you can put your contact details in the or email us, Brother Nat. I'll put the email in the chat, and if you could just email us your contact details, it'd be great. Thank you.